Hello world, and we are back. My name's Kyle Fischl, and this is going to be episode 100 of my poker vlog. Truly, it's been quite a long journey, all the way back when I was filming with terrible angles and having no idea how to do hand graphics or any of that stuff in weird settings. I think we've come a long way from there. Thank you to anyone who subscribes. It helps me out a ton, helps the channel grow, and I greatly appreciate it. You may notice in the corner of the screen, we have a little icon for a sponsor for this video. I am very happy to be partnered with RadPoker. It was the first company to ever believe and support my channel, so we're happy to support those who support us.
Hey Kyle, you ready for date night?
No, I'm sorry. We can't go on a date night. I lost all my money playing poker. That's dramatic foreshadowing.
So you're telling me I can't go on a date this week because you lost all your money, you dirty gym sock smelling, unclipped toenailed bum?
Wait, toenail bum? That's not in the script.
And you don't brush your teeth. Not even once a day.
No, I haven't really been running too well lately. Haven't been playing too well.
Alright, well what have you been doing to improve your poker skills?
Well, nothing.
We should download RadPoker then. I mean, it's free on Android and iOS. Well, it's a fun, fast-paced heads-up poker game. Well, when you subscribe to their pro version, you get access to your statistics and hand history to help build your game further in the future. With RadPoker Pro, you also get access to their weekly cash cups, giving away $1,000 in prizes each week. Last week's first prize, $300. I know you're not used to winning, but imagine what kind of date that could take me on.
Fine, okay, I'll download the app, I'll win the cash cup, and I'll take you on a nice date, okay?
You know what? Screw you. I'm gonna download it myself and take myself on a date with that $300 winnings. You know talent, ho!
With that out of the way, let's get into some hands. We are playing 2-5 no limit Texas Hold'em at Orange City Racing Card Club. First hand of note. There is one limp and early position player raises to $20. I'm going to cut off with pocket jacks. Not going to just call this one. Going to 3-bet. Not even 3x on the smaller side. 3-betting to just build a pot and tighten some ranges. I raised to $50. Well, one of the blinds calls and the early position player calls as well. So we are going 3 ways to a flop of 9-4-3 2 spades. The blind checks, but then the early position pre-flop aggressor decides to jam for $200. And now it's on me. I don't think it'd be smart to just call here. I think it gives the blind a good price to call and chase. If he had spades or some kind of straight draw, we definitely don't want him to get a good price to chase it. I decided to re-jam, try to isolate the short stack who led jammed for this flop. Likely he just has a 9 and I'm way ahead of that. So I go all in. The blind decides to fold, so we are heads up to a run out. Ace of spades is bad, completes a flush and is an overcard if my opponent had like ace 9 but luckily for me, my opponent just had 10-9 offsuit. So jacks are definitely going to hold, and we start the session winning a pretty decent pot. Next hand of note. There is a button straddle. The small blind raises to 30, and I'm in the big blind with pocket kings. Even though this is technically the under the gun open, I can't just call pocket kings even in this early of a position, so I'm gonna 3-bet this one. I make it $110. Well, it folds all the way back to the small blind, who 4-bets to $280. Not quite the spot you want to be in. Iceberg, right ahead! But we do have pocket kings, and technically we have position, so you know, controversial opinion, but I do believe in 2-5 and 1-2 and 1-3. In those stakes of 4-bet, it's plenty okay to fold queens and sometimes kings pre, especially when it's against players who never even 3-bet, let alone 4-bet. I think it's reasonable to fold them against certain player types. This particular person was showing a bit of aggression, so we're not going to give up just yet. We call for 170 more. When the flop is 10-7-5 rainbow, my opponent goes all in for about $450. And this is definitely a tough one. This is not an easy spot. I'm definitely not excited to get my money in here. I'd say 10 high board is decent because my opponent could have jacks or queens at some frequency. There's also the slight chance he's just 4-bet bluffing with ace king and just going for it no matter what the run out is. Say it's less likely that's the case as I double block with my kings, but as I even say it in my video, I'm not good enough to fold. I am not good enough to fold kings in this particular spot against this particular person. So I call, and my opponent does indeed have the pocket aces. So We double player up, and all the profit we had and then some is gone. Next hand of note. About 10 minutes later, against the same opponent and in the same configuration, there's a button straddle. The small blind raises to $35, so even more than he did when he had aces. Interesting. I have ace queen suited. I'm not going to go for a 3-bet with this particular hand, so I go for a bit of pot control and decide to just call this one. One other player calls, so we're going 3 ways to a flop of 4 deuce deuce 1 heart. Well, the pre-flop aggressor does not slow down this board. He bets $50. I think it's very odd to do it on this board. This definitely favors a caller, as I have all the deuces, the pocket fours, the 5-3s, all of that, and my opponent really can't have any of them. So I don't really see the reason in betting this particular flop unless you had like 8s, 9s, 10s, a middling pocket pair that definitely required some protection. So believing that my overs are definitely live against that range, as well as backdoor hearts, backdoor straight draw, and a little bit of desire to get some revenge on this person, I decided to make the call on this one, and the other player in the hand makes the call as well. So we are 3 ways to a turn card, which we bink super hard, turning the ace of diamonds. I feel pretty good about that one. Well, evidently so does my opponent, as the small blind continues for $105 on this card. At this point, I do think it's possible that my opponent is just not giving up with a middling pocket pair. This is a card I think he can use to bluff. It's better for his range than it is mine. And I also think it's possible he could have like ace 10, ace jack, something like that, where he just put out one c-bet, actually turned a weaker ace, and now is value betting. So I do beat some value. I beat a lot of bluffs. I definitely did not turn an ace to fold to one single bet, so I make the call. The third participant in the hand decides to fold, which I'm pretty happy about. I'd much rather take my hand heads up to the river, which is the Jack of Hearts. It's actually a really bad card, because one of the hands I'm hoping my opponent could have is ace jack, and that just gets there. But on this card, my opponent bets $205. And to this, I'd say his line doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't even think ace king can bet all 3 streets like this. I think ace king would have to slow down by the river for the fear of ace jack, or the fact that I could still, based on all the actions, still just have a random deuce. And when the flop really didn't favor my opponent's range, I think it's much more likely he's just taking a random middling pocket pair and just turning it into a bluff than actually having a hand for value that can bet all 3 streets this way. Additionally, I'm getting an insane price. I'm getting about 4 to 1 on my money. I think the pot's too big for me not to take my pair of aces to showdown, so I decided to make the call. And I'm very surprised to see my opponent have pocket aces again. And this is like 10 minutes after the last time he had pocket aces. He's running quite good against me, picking up some really good hands. Alright, after a hand like that, please take a moment and subscribe. Thank you. Well, it's my turn to have a premium. I have pocket kings on the button. The big blind decides to open to $35. My nemesis on my direct right decides to call, and I'm not just going to call kings on the button with a straddle. Gonna bump it up to 145. Well, the big blind and the opponent in the cutoff both decide to call, which I really wasn't expecting. We are 3 ways to a flop of queen 10 for 2 spades. When it checks to me, this is actually a board I'm pretty happy with. If my opponent happens to have queen 10, you know, I'll just hope for some suckouts. But besides that, there's plenty of flush draws, plenty of straight draws, plenty of pairs plus backdoor straight draws that I can get a ton of value from. So I'm definitely going to size up. I definitely need to charge these opponents on this really wet, draw-heavy board. So I bet $325. Well, the big blind pretty quickly goes all in for about $500. So I definitely can't fold for 125 more.
$489 all in.
When the cutoff folds, I make the call, and we are off to a run out. Well, spades hit immediately, which is not good, but the board pairing 4 saves me against the possibility of queen 10, but my opponent just says that he missed, so I show and he mucks. I'm guessing he must have had some kind of jack 9 or king jack, because everything else got there.
I'm the king of the world!
And the stack's looking reasonable again. It's not horrible, it's not great. I'm into the game for 1,600 at this point, so we're about even right now. Before the next hand of note, there are 2 limps. A middle position player raises to $30. I'm in late position with pocket queens. Definitely not going to just call this one. I 3-bet to $100. Well, the pre-flop aggressor is the only caller, so we are heads up to a flop of queen 8 for 2 clubs. When my opponent checks to me, there's definitely a club draw on board, but besides that, there's not much to get value from. Only straight draws that are possible are gut shot. So I think this particular board is a good candidate to check back and go for value on later streets. It's especially true because my opponent in this hand had very often just folded when they had nothing, and we definitely want to give them the chance to catch up so we can get some kind of extra value from flopping top set. So when I check back, the turn is the 9 of clubs. Very, very bad card. Clubs get there. Jack 10 gets there, which I'm much less concerned about. But either way, when my opponent checks to me, I'm definitely not going to check this one back. I'm going to bet. Try to get some value from the ace and king of clubs, and maybe even some pair plus straight draw plus club draws that they may have. Tons of hands I can get paid by. I bet $100. My opponent makes the call again. And when the river is the jack of clubs, my opponent lets out a very big sigh before leading for $250. Not really much we can do on this one. I definitely don't believe this particular opponent can do the reverse tell as just a straight bluff. I think they really just have the ace of clubs and wants to make sure I can't check through. So I fold, and they disappointingly show me the ace of clubs. Sometimes taking risky lines to let your opponents catch up, let them catch up a little too much. So we are clearly tilted at this point because when 2 players limp to me and I'm button straddling, I raise to $35 with 9-8 offsuit. Definitely not recommended. Probably shouldn't be done all too often, but the only way we're going to get our money back is by mixing it up a bit. Well, when the flop is 10-7 deuce all spades and we do have the 9 of spades, we feel pretty good about our hand. Open-ended plus a spade draw. It's likely my opponents could just miss this board completely and check fold. So when it checks to me, I bet 80. Really hoping to just take this pot down now. That would be a fantastic result. Otherwise, we still have a pretty big draw that we could hit by later streets. Well, the big blind is the only caller, so we are heads up to a turn card, which is the 3 of hearts. Now, because this didn't really change anything with the board, I think it's possible my opponent could call once with just a 10 and then give up to a turn bet. I think they also might do that with like ace 7, ace of spades, things such as that. Additionally, when I bet twice, I could also have all the overpairs still. I could have like queens with the queen of spades and hands such as that. I think when I bet twice, I put a lot of holdings in a really tough spot. I think it's tough for a 10 to hang on. Single pairs are kind of forced to fold, and even just single spades are not really getting the right price, especially if I'm repping a made flush where a lot of your outs are still gone. So I bet 125, really expecting this to get through a high percentage of the time, but my opponent calls again. And when the river is the 10 of clubs, I'm really not sure if I should go for the 3rd barrel or not. I think in general it's a bad idea because I'm hoping my opponent could have a hand like 8-9 or Jack-9 or something like that. Whereas now that he's called twice, he could easily just have a random 10, which is not really calling 2 streets to fold when they trip up. I don't think too many single just ace of spades could call multiple streets against me, just based on how tight I've been playing this game up till now, and always having a strong hand at showdown even when it turned out to be cracked in the end. So I decided to give up and check this one back, and my opponent has king-queen with the king of spades. So, you know, being results-oriented, I really wish I would throw that 3rd barrel out there. But in general, I think top card board pairing rivers are pretty bad candidates to bluff at. Let me know what you think in the comments. So next interesting hand. With 1 limp, a middle position player raises to $25. I call in late position with ace jack of clubs and one of the blinds call. So we are going 3 ways to a flop of queen, queen, 8, rainbow. When the preflop aggressor bets $35 and then it's on me, this is going to be one of the few times, very infrequently, where I turn a hand with almost no equity into a bluff. I do this because this opponent had previously folded when aggression was shown against them. A few different times in the session, they would bet flop, get raised, and just fold. This is an opponent where I'm definitely going to try my luck at that move. Additionally, when the board is so dry, I think it's more likely my opponent's just c-betting an ace X versus actually having a queen. Whereas I would raise here with a queen, sometimes some gut shot straight draws that have a lot of backdoor equity, pocket eights, all of which would pretty much force an ace X or small to middling pocket pairs to fold. So I decide to raise to $135. Well, when my opponent decides to call, I'm pretty much just going to shut this down until the turn is the 9 of clubs. Now that I pick up the nut flush draw and a straight draw, just a ton of equity, and the fact that I would bluff with Jack 10 of clubs, hearts, or spades at some frequency as well, I think this is the time to really try to tell the story, represent full houses and queens, and the times I'm called just fall back on my flush draw. So I bet $275, and I wish I would have taken into account my opponent's stack size before I did that, because he pretty easily goes all in for about $425. So only about 150 more for me to call. So that's definitely a mistake on my part. But either way, definitely not going to fold. Nut flush draw, straight draw. Sometimes even my ace is going to be alive against pocket kings here. So based on the situation I've put myself in, I definitely have to call this one. And we're off to see a favorable river. Nope. 7 of hearts is not going to do it for us. And my opponent had king, queen of diamonds. So he did in fact just flop trips, and I decided to blast off against a near nutted hand on this board.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Next hand of note. There is a button straddle. The big blind calls. I'm under the gun +1 with pocket nines. I raise to $40. Well, everyone must have zero respect for me at this point because I get 4 callers. So we are 5 ways to a flop of 7, 7, 6, 2 diamonds. Somehow nines remain an overpair. I do have a diamond blocker, which I'm pretty happy about. Do have some backdoor straight possibilities if it comes to that. But either way, we're just going to bet our overpair. Into 5 people is pretty optimistic to think it's going to get through right now. I expect flush draws and some overcards to just call my bet. But either way, we are still going to go for $110 of pure value with our overpair. Well, I get 1 fold, 2 folds. Feeling pretty good about it until the cutoff raises to $220. And at this point, just imagine the biggest eye roll in the history of the world, because that's how I feel right now. And my hand specifically functions very, very bad against a min raise, because I guess the hand I hope my opponent could have is 8, 9 of diamonds specifically, which they'd still be doing very, very good against me with. But either way, I can't call this because he just has a 7. There's no other answer. So I fold to the min click, and my opponent shows the 7 of spades. So a final hand of note. An early position player raises to $25. It folds all the way to me in the big blind. I look down at pocket jacks. Definitely gonna 3-bet this one. You know, another premium. Gotta go for it. I make it $80, and the early position pre-flop aggressor decides to call. So we are heads up to a flop of king, deuce, deuce. Now on this flop, I'm definitely going to down bet. I would do this with ace, king, pocket aces, pocket kings, queens, jacks, all of it. I have a really balanced range here of premiums and top tops and overpairs and everything. So I think a down bet makes a lot of sense on this board. When my opponent decides to make the call, the turn is the 4 of diamonds. I'm definitely going to size up on this one. I would do this with my entire range that I explained, as well as ace X of diamonds. If I 3-bet like ace queen of diamonds, ace jack of diamonds, if I turn a flush draw, I'm definitely going to size up the same way and put a lot of pressure on my opponent to fold. Hand like king queen, king jack, things like that. That I still believe I can get to fold because I do still have aces, ace king, all that in my range that are the absolute premiums. So we go for a $210 bet. My opponent thinks for over a minute, looking actually genuinely not sure what to do before he eventually calls. I am definitely going to give up on this river. Well, when the river is the ace of hearts, I think that actually changes my plan. Based on the way I play this hand, I could still have aces, kings, ace, king, and I could also have ace-x of diamonds, that river and ace, and go for a value bet against a king. So the fact that this ace hit the river, and I truly believe I can get a single pair of kings to fold to a triple barrel, we are definitely not going to repeat the hand where I give up and get shown king high for a loser. We are going to optimistically fire the third shell of $350. To this bet, my opponent takes a much shorter amount of time than he did on the turn to not fold, but to announce that he's all in. I don't really have a guess at what my opponent can have. I guess maybe it's possible he played ace-king kind of passively. Besides that, I genuinely do not know what else he could even say he has here. As I 3-bet, he did not 4-bet, but regardless, I was bluffing with jacks multiple times, and to his all-in, I definitely cannot call. Suffering another defeat on this particular day. You all may be thinking I'm playing well in this game, but this game was playing very loose and very aggressive, you know. There are people going all-in pre with ace-jack offsuit. Other people calling 4-bet with pocket queens. Like, people were throwing money at this table. It just seems to not have been going my way on this day. But either way, this pitiful little stack is not $2,800, but in fact $668. So today we book a $2,032 loss across 8 hours, equating to $266 an hour, or 53 big blinds an hour. Ouch. Alright, if you made it all the way to this point, thank you. I appreciate it. The results were not exactly what we wanted to on this session, especially when it's supposed to be a big fun 100th episode, and did not go that way. But either way, there'll always be more poker to play next week. Thank you.